Will Zion Elee stay a Terp?
You are Locked On Terps, your daily podcast on the Maryland Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up, everyone? I'm Tre Moore, host of Locked On Terps, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So thank you for making us part of your day. And I'm also doing work at Inside Black and Gold, so make sure you guys head over to insideblackandgold.net for all your latest Terps news. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Zion Elee, 5-star commit. I think it is going to be really hard for the Terps to remain Zion Elee's commitment choice. I think it's going to be really tough. I think this is important to talk about it. I addressed it in my last segment yesterday, but I feel like a lot of people wanted me to expand. I feel like a lot of people wanted me to address this as my first thing today. And I think it's really important for us to talk about 5-star Zion Elee, kind of the right now the face of Maryland recruiting, if you will. He would be the biggest recruit ever in Maryland history. It would be by far the biggest recruit Mike Locksley has brought in, and he would be a true potential generational type of talent that you just don't see every day. Guys like this just don't choose Maryland, and that's just the way it is. Zion Elee's a different type of cat. He's a special type of guy, and I think it was really surprising that it seemed kind of underground when he committed to Maryland and everything like that. And I feel like it wasn't like a huge thing that everybody knew about. Like some of these things, are in the works, and it's looking to happen because all the recruiting websites, 247, On3, all these different things, they start to talk about crystal ball. This guy is going on a visit here. It looks like he definitely can go there. There's so many different things when you look at it. And so usually, but this one was a little bit weird because it kind of came out of nowhere, and it was really exciting for Terps fans and for me to talk about. But at the same time, it was kind of like, this is kind of a weird situation. We didn't hear any rumblings really about it. We didn't really know that this was going to be like a possibility. And especially for a kid that still has a good amount of time to commit. Like a lot of the top 2026 guys aren't committed right now, and they still have time to figure stuff out. And so I think it's definitely interesting that he decided to go with Maryland early on with this battle. But my thing is, I think it's going to be really tough for the Terps to keep arguably the number one recruit in the nation. 247 has been nationally. 6.5, 220 has legit everything you want. Of course, as a DMV kid, goes to St. Francis Academy in Baltimore. You can argue if Baltimore is part of the DMV, but when I think about recruiting, I think of Baltimore as a DMV. When I think about really specifically, I don't. But when we're talking about recruiting in Maryland, like Baltimore counts as part of the DMV area that Maryland wants to recruit in. Obviously, St. Francis is a powerhouse and a really good school. We get a lot of difference makers, a lot of high-level guys that go and play college football. There's other guys on this team that Maryland's looking at as well, that Maryland wants too. But of course, we're going to focus on Zion Elee here. And I think for me, with today's current way college football goes, and college basketball for that matter, but more so in college football, if you're a team like Maryland that is able to land the number one recruit in the nation, it is going to be really, really tough to maintain him. It just is. That's just the way it is nowadays. That's just the way it goes. It's really tough to keep them. And because a lot of it is schools are going to call, schools are going to continue to text, schools are going to continue to be involved, and they're going to offer a lot of money. And in this world, the number one thing that can persuade people, I think, in my opinion, is money. That's the number one thing that has the ability to persuade people, whether you're talking business, whether you're talking football, whatever you're talking about. If you offer someone more money, they're more likely to do something. If you want somebody to stay at your job and you would maybe offer them a raise, that's a really good idea to get somebody to stay. Same exact thing with football. As you guys all know, if you want somebody to decommit and come somewhere else, you're going to offer them more money than the previous school. And everybody knows that these schools have more money to play with. They have more money, they have more boosters, they're more successful, so there's more money going into the program in their NIL foundation. So it's tough for Maryland to be able to keep a guy like Zion Elee. And we saw this. This isn't me just talking about this out of nowhere. The main thing that I probably should address earlier is the fact that he's taking 6 official visits, including Maryland, 6 official visits to some pretty big-time schools. That makes me already kind of see that he's clearly kind of keeping it open. We know he's committed to the Terps. We know that's where he wants to go right now, but it feels like it's just a matter of time before he decides to commit. And the fact that he's going on these visits and feels the need to kind of go through this makes me feel like he's just not 100% committed to the Terps. And I don't have any wrongs, or I don't feel bad, or I'm not trying to say he's a bad kid or anything. Like, that's not my point. My point is this is something that's a big thing. A talent like Zion Elee and what he actually could do for a Maryland 2026 class could be really special. It could be a domino effect to guys like Emmanuel, who goes to prep, who's rated as a top 10 player and one of the best offensive linemen in the 2026 class. That's another 5-star, and other guys in that class that Maryland wants. If Zion Elee stays committed, Maryland looks a lot more appeal. It looks a lot more like a school people will want to go to, appealing. Whereas if he does, it just doesn't look as appealing. Whereas also he's just a really awesome talent. And so the fact that he's going on these visits, it's really concerning. Like, he's going on 5 visits, not including Maryland, 6 including Maryland. So he's going to Ohio State, which is going to, like, he's going over there. Like, that's a tough school for Maryland to compete with, if I'm being 100% honest. If he gets on campus, Ryan Day and the staff is going to put in a lot of effort, because this isn't like it's not like, not saying a 4-star recruit is close to mediocre. But I mean, like, this isn't some like kid that's ranked like 322nd in his class and is really talented, but it's a 4-star recruit type of thing. Like, this is the type of guy who's top, like the top in the nation, like the best player in the nation. Like, Ohio State's going to put a lot into it. They just won the national championship. Auburn has a ton of NIL money to work with. He's going on an official visit there. Penn State, similar thing. Maryland, Penn State, it feels like has a lot of pathways between different recruits. Like, it seems a lot of guys that end up going to Penn State had Maryland in their top 3 and vice versa. And then Texas A&M's got a lot of NIL money as well. Also a good program. And South Carolina had a really interesting too. All schools that have more NIL money than Maryland, all schools that are better right now than Maryland football, and that's just what it is. The record, I don't think that's, I mean, or maybe you could argue no, but still their tradition and being in the SEC and some of those different things, you think of Auburn as a place that has a really awesome football program. And so, to me, the fact that he's taking 6 official visits, it's not like the kid is taking 1 or taking 2, and it's not like he's trying to do it behind closed doors. Like, this kind of felt like, to me, it was like, I'm opening up my recruiting. And I know it doesn't say that, and I know he didn't say that. I know he continues to say he's committed to the Terps, but we've seen this happen a lot of times, and I don't blame him at all. You got to do what's best. I want to make sure that's clear. I don't blame the kid at all. You got to do what's best for you. You got to do what's best for your future. And if that's going to Ohio State, or if that's going to Auburn, or if that's making the most possible right out of high school, and whatever the case is, you have to do that. I don't blame him at all going on visits. I think it's the right way to go about it. I do want to see what happens with it. And if I had to make a prediction, I've been wrong plenty times on the show, as a lot of you guys know. If I had to make a prediction, I would say he ends up decommitting from Maryland. That's my prediction. I don't know anything. I don't have a huge my information to back it up is he's going on 6 official visits. The NIL money is definitely something today, and we know that these early commitments don't stay commitments forever. It's just like what it is in today's college football. I do think I have a good analysis to back it up. Obviously, I hope he stays committed. It's just better for me. It's better for Maryland. It's just better overall for a lot of you guys watching, of course, as Maryland fans. But to me, him on all these officials, him seeing some of these programs and what they can bring, and to be honest, a lot of them it's just more than what Maryland can. It's going to be really tough to keep a kid like that committed. And I just don't see the Terps being able to do it. I hope they can figure it out. I hope maybe they can up the NIL money. I don't know exactly. But to me, my prediction is Zion Elee is going to end up decommitting from Maryland. That's just a prediction. I don't know anything. I'm not trying to say that this is guaranteed going to happen. I'm not trying to clickbait or anything like that. That's just how I see it happening. Let's talk a little bit about the Maryland QB battle. I'm in a weird spot with it. I'll tell you about that next. After the holiday hustle, there's nothing like giving your home a little TLC. I always find that decluttering and refreshing my space helps me get back into a routine. Whether you're tidying up, clearing out, or just want to give your space to start the year, WayFair is everything you need, all within your budget. I'm currently looking for furniture, and their huge selection makes it easy to find pieces that fit my style and budget. My favorite part, the free and hassle-free delivery, even for the larger items. WayFair's site was so easy to navigate, and I found everything I needed in no time. There's something for every style and every home, no matter your space or budget. WayFair makes it easier to tackle your New Year's home goals with endless inspiration for every space. And what is your decor style? You can pick these items at WayFair. Get your home a refresh it needs with WayFair. Head to wayfair.com right now. That's WayFair.com. WayFair, every style, every home. I want to address the QB battle a little bit for Maryland football this year. And I want to talk a little bit about it because I'm still trying to figure this thing out. And I'm still trying to figure out where Maryland's at with this. Obviously, Malik Washington comes in. And I think we're really excited about what Malik Washington can do. And I think he's really the future of this program. And I think he has a chance to be a really high-end type of guy for Maryland in the future. But to me, I don't know what the deal is. It's I'm kind of confused because I'm he's definitely a guy that if he comes in and starts, I think he'll be pretty good. But of course, we got Justin Martin from UCLA, and talking to Ahmed at Inside Black and Gold, on one of the podcasts, he made it seem, and Ahmed is very good at what he does, and of course, he does a really good job at InsideBlackandGold.net. So he kind of made me alter my opinion. I thought as kind of more casual, I thought Malik was going to be the guy. I thought Martin, he's interesting because he's a high-level prospect out of high school, hasn't really gotten a chance at UCLA, but we know he has a chance to be a good player. So I thought, okay, he could be a guy that maybe he starts, but I thought at the end of the day, it's probably Malik Washington's job to lose. But Ahmed said he thought that Justin Martin had a really good shot at being the starter, basically. And so now I'm looking at everything, and it's interesting because I'm okay, what's the deal with this quarterback battle? Obviously, we're bringing the new OC, Pep Hamilton. I think all Maryland fans are really excited about. He's been an OC in the NFL. He's done for a technology as a player, and I think what he's going to be able to do with our quarterback room, I hope, is going to be really successful and really special for Maryland football. And I think that's how it's going to end up being. But to me, there's a couple different things that go into this. One is who's just a better player. If Malik comes in and he's clearly ready and just a better player, I don't think we got to mess around with this thing. I don't think we have to mess around. Loxley can maybe do like a quarterback battle into the season and then give it to Malik. Like, you can do something like that. But I think if Malik's clearly the better guy, which I don't know if that's going to happen, but he's with us in the spring. He's going to be where we kind of, I hope, where we want him to be because he's an early enrollee and stuff like that. So hopefully Malik Washington is able to kind of get things down. But my thing is, if he's the better player, don't mess around. Sometimes they'll be the better player, the freshman, but they'll just start the veteran guy anyway. But there's another thing. I think if the offensive line isn't improved, and I've talked about it, I think it'll be much better next year. I do. I think it'll be a lot more talented. My bad. I think my mic for a couple seconds there kind of blurred out a little bit. Hopefully it's back to being normal. I think I just fixed it. But I think where I was at with things was I was just talking about if the offensive line can't protect from Malik Washington, even if he's a better player, then I wouldn't mind putting Justin Martin in. I think that's kind of where it's a fine line of things. If you don't think this team is good enough for Malik Washington to kind of continue to progress, to continue to get better. But I'm also a guy that feels like the best way for a guy to get better, for a kid like Malik Washington, who's really talented, is for him to play. And you don't want to mess around. You don't want to mess around with the portal these days. Guys will leave. Like, if guys don't play, they'll leave. And I'm not saying Malik would do that, but I'm just saying you don't want to mess around too much. And to me, next year looks more and more like it potentially could be a rebuilding year, to be completely honest. It looks like that's a possibility. So I don't think it's a guarantee at all that Maryland ends up starting Malik Washington. I really think it could be either guy. I think last year I had it way off. I thought it was going to be MJ Morris. It didn't end up being MJ Morris. It was Billy Edwards really the entire season. I, for the longest time, didn't understand it, but as the season went on, I started to. But this one, I tend to think it's going to be Malik Washington by the end of the season. That's my last part of this. I think Malik Washington will be the QB by the end of the season, at least. Maybe Martin starts it and looks better right away. And you got to remember, really talented recruit. Like I said, talented kid, just hasn't really gotten the opportunity. Maybe here at Maryland, he can play effectively and their schedule is really beneficial. But I think some of our earlier games are some of the easiest games on our schedule. So it's like you probably want Malik to getting snaps early. So I think it's interesting. I don't know exactly what's going to happen with it or exactly how it's going to go, but I do think that it could benefit. I think there's just different ways, different scenarios. I don't think it's as clear as Malik should start or Martin should start. And I think that's what Coach Loxley a lot of the times has to consider, go back and forth between, start to figure out is who is really the best option in this case scenario. And I think he's going to be looking at that. But next, I want to talk about March Madness. Where does Maryland slide in? Where should they be seated? A little early bracketology. I think it's something fun that can happen. I think that's something that we should talk about, and I'm excited to talk about that next. So Maryland basketball, I think, is absolutely a tournament team, but I'm going to go off and talk about how high can the Terps get to in terms of a seed, like what's their potential in terms of seeding, how good of a seed can they get to, and then I want to talk about how low can they get to. Right now, we're about a top 25 team. We're right on the brink of things. right at 25, which I think is a good spot for Maryland to be. Obviously, we took that bad loss to Ohio State, which kind of ruined us going up in the rankings. But I would say right now, Maryland's probably around a 6 seed. I think that's where we would be slated if it started today. And I don't think a 6 seed's bad at all. But I want to talk about how high of a seed I think Maryland can get to. And I want to talk about how low potentially I think we could drop. One thing I want to start by saying is I think we're a tournament team. I think it's for sure. I think we should make the tournament. Unless Maryland starts to just lose basically every single game and just starts doing things that they shouldn't do, and this year becomes a really weird year, this Maryland team should be a tournament team. So I want to start by saying that, unless we just start, literally, we would have to lose a lot of games because of where we've put ourselves. And I don't see that our Maryland team doing that overall. And so I think we're definitely a tournament team. Now, our schedule coming up, honestly, is pretty manageable and is really easy. That loss against Ohio State didn't hurt, but we just have, of course, that we have a game this Thursday against Nebraska, a team that we've already beaten, a team that I didn't think was great. Iowa on Sunday, a team that I don't think is great. And then you play USC. You have a chance to get 3 wins in a row against 3 of the USC's been decent this year. Iowa hasn't been good this year. Nebraska hasn't been good. They're non-tournament teams. You have a chance to get 3 in a row against teams that could really kind of boost your resume. They're bad enough where you can win the game, but also good enough where it'll help your resume and help your ranking while other teams battle it out and start to lose games. And I think there's a really good shot that Maryland goes from maybe a 6, maybe we're teetering to 7 right now, to potentially Maryland could be like a 5. Or a 4. I think that's the highest we can go. I don't think we can get to a 3. We'd have to do some pretty crazy things, and I've definitely seen crazy things happen. Like the Michigan State game, I think is interesting. I think you'd have to win a game like that, which it is at home. I think you have to win the game later on the season against Michigan, and I think you would have to win some games in the Big Ten tournament. I do think it's a possibility, but I think what I think is high as Maryland can go that I can realistically see is a 4. I think a 4 seed's a good spot to be in the tournament. Plenty of teams have gone on runs as 4 seeds. You get a 12 seed in the first round, which I think is very manageable. But I do think a 4 seed is somewhere where I think the Terps can be. If I had to predict, though, I see us ending up being a 5. And I think a 5 isn't a bad spot to be, or a 5.5. I kind of want to correct it. A 5.5. What I mean by that is right in between a 5 and a 6. I don't know exactly where we're slated. I don't know exactly how it'll happen. We could just end up being like a 7 or 8, but I see us being a 5 or 6. I think that's how the year's going to go. I think we're going to win games. I think we're going to either beat Michigan State or Michigan, and I think we're going to win some games in the Big Ten tournament. I think we're a really good team. So I see us being a 5 or 6 seed in the tournament, which I think is really good. And I just want to say this. After last year's team, after how bad it was and after how short we came up from last year, as long as we make the tournament, it's a pretty good year for Maryland basketball. Now, this team I think is a little too good to just make the tournament, but still, I think it's a pretty good year and a pretty exciting year for Maryland basketball overall. So we'll see exactly what happens, but I do like where Kevin Willard has this basketball team. That's all we have for today. Thank you for listening to Locked on Terps. Make sure you like and subscribe. We're here every day talking Maryland football and basketball. So thank you guys for listening to Locked on Terps.